Hello. Today I'm going to do a review of 5 verb tenses that I expect you to be able to understand and use with a certain amount of precision. So for some of you this might be a review, and for others it might be more necessary. So let's have a listen. First of all, let's talk about verbs in the simple present. This one's probably one that you've been drilled over 1,000 times. So we use it to talk about a general or permanent activity, a truth, the frequency of an activity, or a fixed schedule in the future. So, for example, I could say the company supplies business software. That is a general or permanent activity. Managers plan, lead, supervise, and organize. We always discuss major purchases. This is more of a frequency activity. Or a fixed schedule. The fiscal year begins on April 1st. We can also use it with non-action verbs. Right now, we don't want to start a trade war. 3 important verbs to remember for any tense that you're working with are be, do, and have. I know that you have seen how to conjugate these before. I just want you to remember that when you get to the third person singular, you need to have an S on your verb if you are using that verb in the present tense form. General conjugation of simple present, we add an S to the third person singular verbs in the affirmative voice. You know that already. He works, she studies, and it snows. It's important to pronounce the verb, not only to think that you have said it in your head, but to say it out loud. And we conjugate the auxiliary do for negatives and questions. So I don't work, I do not work, and he doesn't work. Remember, there is no S on my verb here because my S is here on my auxiliary. Where do you work? How often does he work? Same thing, no S here. It's on my auxiliary. She usually drives to her office. And where do you keep your office supplies? The trick is to use what you know. You already know how to say, I don't know, he doesn't know. So if you can think about that when you're conjugating other verbs, you should be okay. Verbs in the present progressive we use to talk about something at the moment of speaking, a temporary action, or a future planned action. And it's important to consider that we use action verbs only, and I'll talk about that a little bit in a few seconds. So I could say, I am phoning our supplier. That's at the moment of speaking. Something temporary, we hope. We are working from home. And a future planned action, they are having the meeting this afternoon. As for action verbs, if I have ever been your teacher before, then you will have heard me talk about this. If the action happens in your head or in your heart, then we generally do not put an ing on those verbs. So I'll show you what I mean. Verbs like remember, forget, like, hate, understand, these are non-action verbs. They, for example, to remember happens in your head. To like happens kind of in your heart or in your head also. So we cannot say I am remembering. But there are other verbs like think that can be used either in a progressive or a non-progressive way. If you are unsure which verbs are in either list, please let me know. Well, what about McDonald's, you might say? They say, I'm loving it. Well, grammatically, it's wrong, wrong, wrong. And can some verbs be action and non-action? Absolutely. So here's one. It's look. The project looks good. That means in general. Or I am looking at the report to see if it's complete. It means I'm doing that now. So I can use them in either tense. The general conjugation for progressive verbs is with the auxiliary be. If it's present progressive, be is in the present. But you always add an ing to your verb. So I am studying. I am not studying. Or am I studying? Not very complicated. Next is spelling. This column shows spelling tricks for the simple present verb tense, and this one shows it for present progressive, or any progressive rather. Third person singular, add s. So often you just add an s, unless your verb ends in a consonant plus the letter y, like try. Try becomes tries, tries. If your verb ends with a vowel and the letter y, you just add s. And if it ends in k, f, x, or s, you add es. She kisses her dog. For the present progressive or any progressive, most of the time you just add ing, but there are some other rules. For example, if your verb is one syllable and it ends in vowel consonant, you double the consonant. Although there are some exceptions. For example, if it ends in w, you don't double it, or x, you don't double it, etc. If your verb is one syllable, it ends in vowel, consonant plus the letter e, you don't double anything. And if your verb has two syllables, you look at how you pronounce the verb and then you make a decision. So based on where you put the stress on your verb. For example, in this one I say visit. I don't say visit. So because my stress is on the first syllable, then I do not double my consonant, visiting. But if I say begin, I'd like to begin, I don't say begin, so I have to double my consonant. Making questions, if you follow the Quasvo rule, it works for most direct questions in English, and you just need to remember to fill in the blanks kind of as you go along. So question word, auxiliary, subject, verb, and the O is the object or the rest of the sentence. When you have the verb to be by itself, it is both the auxiliary and the verb, like why are you sad? But in present progressive, why are you crying? In this case, it's just an auxiliary, and crying is my verb. How often does she meet her clients? So this is simple present. I use does because my subject is she, and my s is here, so I don't put the s on my verb. How often does she meet her clients? Where is she meeting them this week? So again, we see the difference also between questions in the simple present, the usage, and in the present progressive. Next is the present perfect. It's a verb tense that maybe some of you haven't really studied very much, but we have to use it often in our daily lives. 1 second here, my cat is meowing. I should know better than to work in my office with my cat here because she drives me crazy. Anyway, back to the grammar. Present perfect. It's an action in the past, or it can be an action in the past without a specific time reference, but it has an impact in the present. So she has already seen results from her planning. Here's my auxiliary and here's my verb. I have spoken to him recently. So I know that at some point in the past, I spoke with him and there is an impact in the present. It can also describe an action that began in the past, which is not yet finished. Sales have increased this year. It is currently August 2020, so the year isn't finished. We can assume that sales will continue to move one way or the other. So sales have increased this year. Or the pandemic has affected our sales. The pandemic started in the past. It's not yet finished, and the effect is still continuing. For the conjugation of the present perfect, don't forget to use the correct auxiliary. My cat is meowing again. Hold on. Okay, back to conjugation of the present perfect. Your auxiliary is have or has. So have is with I, you, we, and they, those subject pronouns, and has goes with the subject pronouns he, she, and it. To make it negative, you just make your auxiliary into a negative, and to make it question word, auxiliary, subject, verb. Don't forget, though, that your verb has to be in the past participle. So for an irregular verb, such as the verb to see, my past participle is seen. It's that third column of verbs when you're trying to learn your verbs. Or meet, the past participle is met. If your verb is regular, then you just add ed, like a simple past verb. So we or they have tried, he has tested, she has offered, and it has been. Don't forget to pronounce the H at the beginning of your words. She has offered. It's not a super loud noise, but it's certainly important to say it. Oh, that's backwards. Verbs in the simple past. We use them for actions that are clearly in the past, and usually with a time reference. So he completed the report on time. We don't have a time reference, but we know that it's in the past. She didn't meet her sales target last month. Here I have a time reference. I joined the company before the pandemic, so we have a time reference. They didn't win the contract. The action is finished. Conjugation, for regular verbs, just add ed in the affirmative. For irregular verbs, you have to learn them. For example, I talked. She goes, she went. For an irregular verb, also in negatives. For all verbs, regardless of the verb, except, no, that's not true, because the verb to be is different. But we use did not or didn't, plus your verb in the base form. So I saw becomes I didn't see. He left becomes he didn't leave. And for questions, again, all verbs except the verb to be. We use did as your auxiliary plus the verb in the base form. So I tried. What did you try? Past progressive or past continuous is the last one we're going to look at today. Same thing, that we need to use it only with action verbs. It can be used to describe two past actions at the same time. For example, he was texting his answer when she was talking to him over Zoom. Or it can be used to describe an action in progress which is interrupted by another past action. While he was texting, he didn't see the car coming towards him. In that case, one of my verbs, generally the verb after the word while, is going to be in my past progressive, and then the other verb is going to be in the simple past. So this has been a quick review. I know for some of you this is easier than for others. So how can you get some practice and feel at ease? You can contact me. You can contact the online, the Virtual Help Center. You can read and see how the language is used. They're practicing, lots of ways to practice online. You can watch programs or listen to music. Well, watching programs with subtitles really helps. It'll help you learn vocabulary and language structures. So don't be shy, and if you have any questions, feel free to contact me. Thank you very much, and have a great day.